Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to another Quran study. God willing, today we'll be reading from Surah 39, verse 33. Let's all seek refuge in God from Satan the rejected. The Quran, the absolute truth. As for those who promote the truth and believe therein, they are the righteous. They will get everything they wish at their Lord. Such is the reward for the righteous. God remits their sinful works and rewards them generously for their good works. So these verses are referring to the Quran as the absolute truth. And this is the absolute truth because it's unaltered, proven word of God. We have the mathematical evidence that supports that Quran is the word of God. And God says that those who promote this scripture, people who preach this message and promote it to others, and they believe in it themselves also, which is very important, then God says they are the righteous and they're the ones that will get anything in paradise, anything you want, anything you wish for, God will provide for you on the day of judgment. It will be available for you in paradise. Once you leave this world, you enter paradise directly and you'll have anything you want, anything you wish, absolutely will be given to the believers. A profound question. Is God not sufficient for his servant? They frighten you with the idols they set up beside him. Whomever God sends astray, nothing can guide him. And whomever God guides, nothing can send him astray. Is God not Almighty Avenger? So we see here in the actual published version of the Quran, is God not sufficient is underlined also. And this is a profound question that, people who idolize other idols besides God, scare the believers with these types of idols and makes them feel that they need something other than God alone in order for them to be redeemed. They need something other than God in order for them to make it to heaven. And God says, God is sufficient for us, if you don't worship Jesus or Muhammad or any other saints and idols, etc., that they worship, they frighten the believers with wrath from those idols. And God says that, God is sufficient for the believers, and that's God is all you need for your salvation. And so if you have God on your side, everything will work for you. And God says, whomever God guides, nothing can send him astray. Is God not Almighty Avenger? So anybody who is guided by God, nobody can send him astray. You have the armies of, jinns and humans that are working against God, and we're in this world, swimming against the current with all these disbelievers all around us, going the wrong way, scheming evil things. But all of them combined cannot send the believers astray. Because God is the one who's, guiding the believers, who's leading them on the right path. They believe in God, yet they are going to hell. If you ask them, who created the heavens and the earth, they will say, God. Say, why then do you set up idols beside God? If God willed any adversity for me, can they relieve such an adversity? And if he wills a blessing for me, can they prevent such a blessing? Say, God is sufficient for me. In him the trusters shall trust. Say, O my people, do your best, and I will do my best. You will surely find out. You will find out who has incurred shameful punishment and has deserved an eternal retribution. So they believe in God, as a subtitle say. People think that, for example, they'll say, well, so-and-so believes in God, so he's a good person because he believes in God, and just because someone says that they believe in God with lip service doesn't mean that they actually believe in God. Believing in God means believing in all of God's qualities. Believing number one in His oneness, believing that He's sufficient, that He has no partners. That's believing in God. And so, if someone doesn't believe that, the thing is that they're really not gonna make it. And when there's no other dialogue between these people, then all you can tell these people is to say, fine, you do your part, you do your best, whatever you think is the best thing for you in this world. You live that life, and then I live mine, and then we'll see at the end who's the winner. Who is redeemed by God at the end of the day. God says, and it says, you will find out who has incurred shameful punishment, who has deserved an eternal retribution. Right? So, people of other religions are quick to condemn people to hell. Right? They think that if you don't believe in Jesus, if you don't believe in Muhammad, if you don't believe in saints, if you don't believe in certain rabbis and stuff, that you're going to go to hell. And so, and these are the same people that that will be in hell, and they will be looking for the righteous people to say, why aren't they in hell with them, right? Because they thought that these people were doomed and were going to hell. So they will find out on the day of judgment, that they are the ones who went to hell, while God redeemed the believers. Verse 41 says, we have revealed the scripture through you for the people truthfully. Then whoever is guided for his own good, and whoever goes astray to his own detriment. You are not their advocate. So the thing is that, an advocate is someone whose job it is to protect and to save someone, right? And God says it's not your job to advocate, to be their advocate. God is the one who will judge people based on their works. And God says whoever is guided, it's to his own benefit. I mean, God doesn't gain anything from anybody being on the right path, right? And it certainly doesn't help you if your neighbor or your friend is on the right path or not. It's in his own best interest, or her own best interest, that he or she goes on the right path, stays on the right path, and worships God, so that the person can be redeemed by God, and the person can be guided. And so the only person who benefits from believing is us. If we believe, it benefits us, right? We will not be at a loss. No injustice will happen to us. We will not miss out on anything in life. We will actually benefit from God's promises. We'll have a better life. We'll have more rather than less. And so this is God's promise that we all must believe in order to be guided by God. Right? God is the one who is in control of each and everything in the heavens and the earth. So he controls all our circumstances. He controls everything around us, all our circumstances, our destiny, our provisions, all of that. And all the dangers that are around us, he protects the believers from that, right? So it's in our best interest to be on the side of God, so we can be guided, so we can be protected, and so we can be redeemed. And God says it's for our own benefit, and whoever is misguided, he doesn't hurt anybody but himself. All the people who scheme evil schemes, God says the evil schemes will backfire against them, right? So only people who get hurt are the people who scheme them. Only people who get hurt are the people who commit transgressions and sins. And those are the people that need to be afraid, in life, rather than the people who are on the right path. People who are on the right path need to be, confident, and they need to trust in God and believe in God. And God says he protects them from all disasters and dangers, and he guides them on the right path. And he protects them from any kind of scheming whatsoever, anything, somebody might scheme, so we should be on the path of God. Verse 42 says, God puts the souls to death when the end of their life comes, and also at the time of sleep. Thus he takes some back during their sleep, while others are allowed to continue living until the end of their predetermined end term. This should provide lessons for people who reflect. So if you really think about it, I mean, what happens when you go to sleep? I mean, last night you went to sleep, and then it's almost like time froze, and then you woke up again, and it was already 6, 7, 8 hours, depending on how long you slept, had already passed. And where were you during that time? How did that happen, right? And so if you think about it, that's just the same way as death. When we die, God puts our souls to death. In the same way, when we sleep, it's a kind of a death, but it's just a temporary one, right? But in some people, for some people, it's not. Some people can die actually in their sleep, and God says some He takes back in their sleep, while others are allowed to live. So the souls are, in the same way, we will be resurrected, just like you go to sleep and then you wake up. All of a sudden you're back functioning and seeing everything and processing all the information and talking and listening. In the same way, I mean, death is the exact same thing. And God says He puts the souls to death when the end of their life comes, and also at the time of sleep. So the time of sleep, the souls are also put to death in a very similar fashion. I mean, of course, the angels come and snatch the souls of the bodies of the disbelievers, and they're tortured. That's besides the fact, but this is just a process of, or the nature of the death of the believers versus the disbelievers, right? But the actual thing is the same. The souls are put to death at the time of sleep, and then we're allowed to come back just like the next day, just like we're resurrected, right? So God willing, we'll continue reading the myth of intercession. 43 says, have they invented intercessors to mediate between them and God? Say, what if they do not possess any power nor understanding? Say, all intercession belongs to God. To Him belongs all sovereignty of the heavens and the earth. Then to Him you will be returned. So if we think about it, the fact that all these people have all these idols that they have set up beside God, I mean, people think that they're really helping themselves when they're, going to these intercessors and thinking that, they will be the middleman that is at a better position with God, that could, that God will not listen to them, but will listen to this person because this person is more beloved to God, But the fact of the matter is, God is not like any human on earth that you just go and say, your grandpa's at a good position and you go and ask for promotion of someone that works for your grandfather, and someone will go to you because your grandfather is the head of the company, right? But that God is not like that. God is, and that is something that you would expect from someone who's not just, right? Let's say, someone deserves a promotion, and someone who's related to a person the person goes to him and says, promote this person so-and-so to this position instead of another person. And even though the other person is not worthy of it, he ends up promoting just because he's related to the other person, whether he's qualified for the position or not, And so that is not an example of justice. And we can see certainly that God, who is the most just, will not allow something like that. He will redeem people based on their actions, not based on anything else. If your actions are worthy, you'll be admitted to paradise purely based on merit, purely based on what you earned. If you earned a life that was deserving of paradise, you will definitely go to paradise. You don't need anybody, If you're already going to paradise, even if somebody does ask for you to be entered into paradise, like for example, the angels asking the believers to, asking God for the believers to be, entered into paradise and their sins being forgiven, God is definitely going to do that because they deserve for their sins to be forgiven because they were righteous. They tried to be on the right path. They did everything they could, and God redeems them, right? We can, in the same way, we can ask for the believers to, be redeemed, and we can ask sins for forgiveness of the sins for us, for forgiveness of the sins for all believing men and women, unless they're idol worshippers. And so, if they're meant to be, if they're meant to be in heaven, they're worthy enough to be in heaven. They deserve to be in heaven. They will be in heaven, and nothing you or I or anybody else can do or say will allow someone to be in or out of hell or heaven, right? So everybody goes to heaven or hell based on what they have done, and this is God's system, right? God is the most just, and we can't expect anything less. And God says that's why all intercession belongs to God. To God belongs all sovereignty of the heavens and the earth. Then to Him you will be returned, right? So the reason why it says all sovereignty belongs to God on that day is because God does not need to listen to anybody. He's not a secretary for Muhammad or Jesus who's going to dictate to God, who should be in heaven or not. If anything, God knows Himself who deserves to be in heaven or not. He doesn't need anybody to tell Him to put this person to hell, to put this person to heaven. God knows everything, so there's no need for any of this. And His system dictates that He already knows, and there's no intercession. Anybody who deserves it gets it. Anybody who doesn't, they don't. And if anybody believes in intercession, that's coming idol worship, because all sovereignty belongs to God. And then you're saying that someone else can benefit you besides God, right? And you go to someone else asking them for help. So this is completely wrong on many different levels, but yet we see majority of the humans being stupid enough to be duped by Satan for something so nonsensical, which doesn't make any sense. And yet people are hypnotized to accept something like that, something that's so obvious and straightforward to see. But people are blinded by wishful thinking, as we know, and promises that are based on lies, propagated by Satan. Verse 45, the greatest criterion. When God alone is mentioned, the hearts of those who do not believe in the hereafter shrink with aversion. But when others are mentioned beside Him, they become satisfied. And the footnote says, despite the clear commandment in 3:18 that the first pillar of Islam is proclaiming Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, there is no other God beside God, the majority of quote-unquote Muslims insist upon adding the name of Muhammad. This greatest criterion alerts us that rejoicing in adding the name of Muhammad or any other name exposes disbelief in the hereafter. See also footnote for 1746. And if you see the footnote for 1746, it says the Arabic word alone refers to God in 770, 39, 45, and 40, 12, and 84, and 64. If you add these numbers, you get 361 or 19 times 19. But if you include 1746, which refers to Quran, the product is not a multiple of 19. Alone, therefore, refers to Quran in 1746. So 1746 says, Quran, the only source. We place shields around their minds to prevent them from understanding it, and deafness in their ears. And when you preach your Lord using the Quran alone, they run away in aversion, right? And so the reason why this footnote is important here is because it's referring to God alone. When God alone is mentioned, the hearts of those who do not believe in the hereafter shrink with aversion. But when others are mentioned besides Him, they become satisfied. So this is like a litmus test for people who don't believe in the hereafter, right? People who will believe in the hereafter truly, when God is mentioned on its own, automatically, their hearts become satisfied, their hearts rejoice. It satisfies them that God is mentioned. But for the disbelievers who are hypocrites, who don't actually believe in the hereafter, they have to hear they have to hear the name of their idols. Like, if you say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah, someone will correct you and say, no, you forgot to say Muhammad. Muhammad's name there, right? And then when you mention Muhammad, they start kissing their hands and all kinds of stuff, and praising Muhammad and everything. Like, whoa, like some magic happened, something so great happened. And you are mentioning God, God every time, and it's like nothing, right? There's no reaction. So this truly shows that someone who truly believes in God, when God is mentioned, if you really think about it, it gives peace and it gives happiness, it gives joy, to the believers. And their hearts rejoice, their souls are nourished. And that's something that is only exclusive for the believers who believe in God alone. Verse 46, proclaim our God, initiator of the heavens and the earth, nor of all secrets and declarations. You're the only one who judges among your servants regarding their disputes. So God is the only one who will judge among us on the day of judgment regarding everything that people are disputing right now. Verse 47, if those who transgressed owned everything on earth, even twice as much, they would readily give it up to avoid the terrible retribution on the day of resurrection. They will be shown by God what they never expected. The sinful works they had earned will be shown to them, and the very things they used to mock will come back to haunt them. Right? So for those of us who have been, watching people comment and share their ideas and thoughts and reactions on social media, for example, can see the kinds of things that they write, right? Every day we get comments from people of all types, right? Some of them are, righteous comments, praise be to God, But then you have these other people that God is talking about here that are mocking and calling names and stuff like that, horrible, horrible things that these people are saying that, your heart just, kind of, they're disturbing to read almost, right? God says that their sinful works that they had earned will be shown to them, and the very things they used to mock will come back to haunt them. So they will have haunting experiences of the things that they said and things, the way that they reacted towards God and His messengers and towards His revelations, and the way they mocked and ridiculed the believers and the messengers, and the names they called them, and the things that they said, and the schemings. Everything that they did against God will come back to haunt these people. And God says, day of judgment, right? People in this world love material things so much, right? But on the day of judgment, the retribution is going to be so terrible, and of course it's going to be eternal. So anybody would wish whatever they had, even twice as much on earth, they would readily want to give it up, just to escape hell, right? And that shows us the price of our faith too. Like, God says, earth full of gold, even twice as much, will not be accepted from anybody, in exchange for paradise, So people can buy their way in now to the most luxurious places and live there, buy palaces and stuff like that with just a little bit of money. But on the day of judgment, even if you have, that's how expensive it is to be in paradise, right? You can spend everything in this world twice as much, give all your wealth, you can own an entire island or countries or continents or the whole earth, or even twice as much. And you can't use it to find your way into paradise, It's exclusive for the believers, for people who worship God alone. And hell is unavoidable for people who don't. And so God says that they would want to readily, not even a bit of hesitation, they would want to readily give it up just to be in paradise, just to escape hell, because they know that's the real life, and this world was just a game, so to speak, right? It was just, it was just an illusion, or illusion's a better word, and they will realize that this world was nothing. It was just an illusion. It was just a test it was so temporary. We didn't even realize when it started and when it ended, and now we're facing God. They never thought that it was going to happen. They never expected this day to come, right? Imagine people are thinking about living forever and getting frozen and unfrozen and all kinds of stuff. Believing in aliens or evolution, whatever. Nobody's talking about the hereafter. Most of the people are disbelievers in the hereafter, right? So naturally, no one thinks about it, and if anything, people think that everybody goes to paradise, or just one exclusive group goes to paradise, which would be the group that they're associated with, and so nobody actually believes that they will actually be held accountable for their works, and certainly people that are going to hell have no idea that they're actually going to hell. That either they don't believe in it, or they believe they're going to heaven, right? And so on the day of judgment, and those who believe that they're going to heaven who are not actually going there actually still don't believe in it. Otherwise they would be believers and actually do the things that would get them into heaven rather than just thinking about it and believing that they're going there. Reading on to verse 49, human fickleness. If the human being is touched by adversity, he implores us, but as soon as we bestow a blessing upon him, he says, I attained this because of my own cleverness. Indeed, this is only a test, but most of them do not know. Those before them have uttered the same thing, and their earnings did not help them in the least. They suffered the consequences of their evil works. Similarly, the transgressors among the present generations will suffer the consequences of their evil works. They cannot escape. Do they not realize that God is the one who increases the provision for whomever he chooses and withholds? These are lessons for people who believe. So God talks about the fickleness of the human being, that, if he is just, like it says, if he's just touched by adversity, he implores us, but as soon as God gives him a blessing, all the good things come from God, right? We don't own anything. We don't control anything. If something nice is given to us, it's not really us. God is the one who allowed us to enjoy something. God is the one who created it. If God gives you something nice, it's coming from God, and it's not coming to you because you're so righteous, or you're so amazing that you have this thing. It's not because you're so intelligent. It's because God decided to give it to you, right? As simple as that. And anything you have in this world, any material thing, it's coming to you because God is the one who decided to give it to you. And so for people who believe that they're anything special, that they're so intelligent, when these things are given to them, are just basically fooling themselves and falling in the traps of Satan, because Satan is one who came up with a very similar idea. So this is very satanic, right? If a person thinks that way, because when God gave powers to Satan, those were God's powers, and Satan wouldn't possess anything other than what God gave him, right? Yet, Satan thought that he could be a god beside God because of his powers, right? But they weren't his powers, even if he could have been, somewhat even close to, the example that he would be able to control anything, that would only have been possible if God wanted it to be as such, right? But the thing is that because he had that power, he started getting these ideas that, he could be a god too, because he didn't think that it was God's. These powers were God's. He thought they were his, right? And so when we see people in this world, when they get things, they start thinking that they are their things, that they own them. And most of them believe that, majority of them, if not all of them, believe that they have these things because they are smart, they think that there's something special about them that allowed them to get these things, to have things that someone else doesn't have, and And with that also comes the arrogance, that shows that they actually think that way, and which is, obviously a characteristic of Satan. And instead of being humble and instead of attributing it to God and thanking God, they attribute it to themselves and idolize, those things by not, glorifying God, right? That's why we're commanded by God to glorify Him for anything that God has given us. Our homes, our cars, our children, our spouses, our families, anything that we recognize as a blessing, we should say, MashaAllah. All power belongs to God. This is what God has given us. No one else possesses any power except God, right? We understand that. And we have to acknowledge it for our own good so that we don't end up idolizing, these things. But these people believe that, they got it because of their own cleverness. And some of these people even think, oh yeah, if I go to hell, or heaven, or in the hereafter, I'll be clever enough to find my way out over there too. Like we have the story of the person who, idolized his garden, right? In the same manner. And God says in verse 50, those before them have uttered the same things, and their earnings did not help them. They suffered the consequences of their evil works, and similarly, the people of the present generations will suffer the same thing. So people in the past, we have so many examples, right? We have people of Pharaoh that were so powerful and mighty, and they ended up, incurring the same fate as all the other humans, who had, different circumstances. And God says, the people in this world, whoever it is, no matter how powerful they think that they are, and how clever they think they might be, they cannot escape God. And then God says that they will have the same consequences if they don't believe. God's infinite mercy. Verse 53, proclaim, O my servants who exceeded the limits, never despair of God's mercy, for God forgives all sins. He is the forgiver, most merciful. You shall obey your Lord and submit to Him totally. Before the retribution overtakes you, then you cannot be helped. And follow the best path that is pointed out for you by your Lord, before the retribution overtakes you, suddenly when you least expect it, lest a soul may say, how sorry I am for disregarding God's commandments. I was certainly one of the mockers. Or say, had God guided me, I would have been with the righteous. Or say, when it sees the retribution, if I get another chance, I will work righteousness. Verse 59 says, yes, indeed, you did get enough chances. My proofs came to you, but you rejected them, turned arrogant, and became a disbeliever. So it is God's infinite mercy. We see that, God says that, people who have even exceeded the limits, who have sinned and led a life of transgressions so far, that if they repent and believe, God says their sins could be forgiven. And God tells them not to despair of God's mercy, right? I mean, it is definitely in Satan's favor to convince people that they're going to hell. And we would wonder why. I mean, what does Satan gain out of it, by making people believe that they're going to hell? Well, when you believe that, you're doomed, you're going to hell in this world while you still have a chance, what are you doing? You're actually despairing from God's mercy. And you're not acknowledging the fact that God is forgiver, most merciful. And so if you have sins that are burdening you, that are things that were wrong and you did them and they're kind of piled up on you, that you should still not despair of God's mercy. As long as you're alive in this world, you have the chance to implore God as much as possible and turn to the right path and turn to God. And God gives these people lots of incentives to turn to God and let go the sins and transgressions that they had been doing, to repent and fix their life. And because, if Satan makes someone believe that they're actually going to hell already, he's going to stop trying, right? On top of that. So he's just going to let go and give into whatever way Satan wants to mislead him. Of course, the moment someone despairs of God's mercy, he's already trapped by Satan again, right? Because God says only the disbelievers are the ones who despair of God's mercy. So they despair of God's mercy, and then, they're sad and depressed, and, they're no longer on the path of righteousness. They're no longer on the path of God, and, they just fall into despair and disbelief. And so falling in despair is a kind of disbelief, when you're not acknowledging God, and you're not acknowledging His power, you're not acknowledging His continuous mercy, you're falling for something like that. And so we have to be careful to make sure that we're not falling in despair of at any time of God's mercy. Like even if it's something worldly in some ways, people easily fall in despair. But we see the examples of prophets and messengers that they never despaired of God's mercy, and even when they felt that things were not looking good in their favor for something, let's say some prophets and messengers, we have examples in the Quran, right? Like Zechariah, he came to a point where a person most likely will not have any hope for having a child, because he was already old, his bones were brittle, his hair were, as it says in the Quran, aflame with gray. His wife was sterile on top of it, so there was no possibility from his side or from her side that either one of them could conceive. And so a person is easily inclined to lose hope at that point, right? They're easily going to rule out the possibility of them ever having children, and they'll accept the fact that they're not going to have children. And then they might even say, oh, I don't even want children, I don't even like children. Or someone will say, oh, children are just a test, whatever. And when they can't have something, they start thinking of ways to just kind of deny the idea that they could be blessings, that someone else could be given something like that as a blessing or as a good thing, because they don't have it, right? And then just despair at that point, just give up the idea, or never think that they would ever get anything, and then they would not even ask God for it because they think that it's not possible. But the thing is, God is omnipotent, and God is the most merciful, and God is the most kind, and so when you acknowledge these attributes of God, you should not despair of God's mercy. I mean, we should have all the best thoughts about God, right? We should understand that God is most kind, most loving, and most merciful, most clement. And so to have these ideas, I mean, it's not righteous, right? I mean, if you think in this manner from someone who's a human being, that would be bad, right? Let's say your friend has, I don't know, something nice that you want, right? And you think, oh, your friend is never gonna let you have that, and if your friend finds out, or he's not gonna, he or she may not like it, right? Because if you really thought this person was a good person, why would you think that way? You'd only think that way if you thought this person was selfish or didn't care about your feelings or wasn't aware of your needs, etc., right? So there's nothing positive about it when it comes to God, because God is the most kind, most merciful, generous, most gracious, right? And so if you know these attributes, it's not righteous for you to despair of God at that point, right? And just that will just be having bad thoughts. And God says only the disbelievers have these thoughts, and only the disbelievers despair from God's mercy. Verse 54 says, you shall obey your Lord and submit to him totally. So for us, what is required is for us to submit to God completely. You cannot live a double life. Some people think that they will do some good and do some righteous works, and then they can do whatever they want. Is wishful thinking, and those people will never make it because they haven't fully submitted to God. They haven't taken God as their Lord and Master, and they have decided to be His servant. They have decided to, want to live their own life, do whatever they want, basically, and choose a way in between. And most likely they will be led astray by Satan because they are even aiming for something like maybe purgatory or lower, right? And so they've underestimated the entire difficulty of this test, and so it is very, very unlikely that this person's going to make it. But people have to submit seriously, completely to God alone. I mean, if you really believe in the hereafter, that's the only natural response. If you truly believe that the retribution is going to come to these people and their people are going to go to hell, and you're already halfway to hell, you're not just going to take it easy and have this laid back approach and say, oh, I'm going to do this sin and this sin and this sin, and then I'll do some righteous works and maybe do my 5 prayers if I can, and then I'll make it, right? So we have to submit completely to God, and we have to pledge to fulfill all of God's commandments, moving forward, if you're serious about making it to paradise. And then God talks about all these statements that people will make on the Day of Judgment. They'll say, oh, how sorry it is that I was disregarding all of God's commandments, and I was certainly one of the mockers, and now I believe, and if I get another chance, I will be righteous. And I mean, all these statements are easy to read, but these will be heavy, heavy things on the chests of the disbelievers when they're in hell. Imagine, they had this small opportunity of something that is, comparatively such an easy thing to do, to escape hell, and they just, lived it off and, wasted their time and were one of the mockers and just indulged into meaningless things on this earth, right? And wasted their entire opportunity that God gave them to earn paradise, to be as close to God as possible, to be one of the best creatures, and they became the worst creatures. So definitely is going to be a regret and remorse, for eternity for these people, right? It is very sad for these people. And God says, and God will save those, and it says, yes, indeed, you did get enough chances. My proofs came to you, but you rejected them. Verse 59. You rejected them, turned arrogant, and became a disbeliever. On the day of resurrection, you will see the faces of those who lied about God covered with misery. Is hell not the right retribution for the arrogant ones? And God will save those who have maintained righteousness. He will reward them. No harm will touch them, nor will they have any grief. God is the creator of all things, and He is in full control of all things. To Him belongs all decisions in the heavens and the earth, and those who disbelieve in God's revelations are the real losers. Say, is it other than God you exhort me to worship, O you ignorant ones? Idol worship nullifies all work. It has been revealed to you and those before you that if you ever commit idol worship, all your works will be nullified and you will be with the losers. Right? So this is God's promise that if you commit idol worship, you maintain it until death, all your works will be nullified, right? Imagine you could be giving so much charity and doing so many righteous works, doing all your salat and, giving charity, your zakat, doing hajj and whatever else, but you went to commit idol worship, right? So that nullifies everything that these people did because they failed their test. The test and why we are here is to see if you worship God alone under all circumstances or fall into idol worship. When you fall into idol worship, the test is over. Like, you committed something that you were not supposed to commit. It's the only unforgivable offense. So, on that day, then, only these people are themselves to blame. So may God allow us to be one of those who can be redeemed by God and, allow us to be on the path. May God guide us and forgive us. And with this, God willing, I will end. And if you guys have any comments or questions, please feel free. Sorry, I went for almost 5 minutes over time.
MashaAllah, great study. Thank you.
All right, so um, people who are watching these Quran studies cannot read our comments. So if you have a comment, you're encouraged to um, say it. God willing. But if you can't talk, then you can type, and then maybe I will read it out.
MashaAllah, yeah, like verse 38, like it was talked about, there's so many people who believe in God. When you ask them who created the heavens and the earth or
Oh,
who created,
someone
they
talking?
bear with. Yeah, can you hear me?
I thought someone said something, but I can't hear anything. No, funny thing, I couldn't hear. I heard. I think I heard something downstairs. Yeah, something weird is going on. 1 second. Okay, maybe can someone try talking now? Oh, can you guys try talking now?
Yeah, can you hear me
Oh, I
now?
can hear you now. Perfect. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, what's up? Yeah, verse 38, like it was talked about in the discussion, there's so many people who bear witness to God's existence, right? And if you ask them, who created the heavens and the earth, who brought you out of your mother's bellies and stuff, and they'll acknowledge God, but then they set up, idols to rank with them. Like I just, was messaging somebody the other day, just sending them reminders. Um, this, same person I've kind of had an ongoing debate with, and it's you get to a point where you remember that God's in control of the guidance, and like we read
Mm-hmm.
further ahead in the second page, the verse it says, and like you had mentioned, brother, how sorry these people would be. It says, "Lest the soul may say, how sorry I am for disregarding God's commandments. I was certainly one of the mockers." But I mean, in this respect, even though they're not mocking, they're still, going to have um, a feeling of remorse, perpetual remorse for eternity. These warnings and messages that come to people. You only have so much time, and like you had mentioned, brother, earlier, there's we can't just put one foot in. We have to put both feet in and make like a full effort because there's like some people who think they can just get by doing this or that. That never that's just more risky, right? I mean, just like in anything in this world, if you really want something, or if you're taking a job or something very seriously, you're gonna give it 100% or 110%. So yeah, I was just reflecting on verse 38 and 56. Sorry about the music in the background. I tried to walk to a quiet place, but um,
The thing is, like as you mentioned before, uh, that we can only advise people, and then God is the only one who guides. And at that point, if someone decides to be blind, then it's their loss.
yeah, right. And you can, I felt bad for this person because it's like the human fickleness. I see what they're sharing on, social media, and at this point, I figured I would quit talking to this person, and then they share stuff that obviously indicates that they're depressed and stuff. So then I sent them like an excerpt out of the Quran, the perfect happiness now and forever, and I think it was something from the introduction
Mm-hmm.
or one of the appendixes, but there's no
Mm-hmm.
response from this person either. So then I sent them, like a few other
Mm-hmm.
things and trying to motivate them, but they're fickle, and some days
Mm-hmm.
they're happy and it's all good, but when something bad happens, they're depressed, and you can see that something's lacking too. And when you
Mm-hmm.
give these people, the blueprint, they disregard it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I like the example you gave too about how expensive paradise is. I never really thought of it like
Mm-hmm.
that. Like two Earths can't buy your ticket in. Even if you owned islands and everything. Thinking more in more of a detailed like um,
Mm-hmm.
type of manner. It's you can look at how expensive it is. So it's
Mm-hmm.
and it's I like the example. Um, put it in that perspective. Yeah, brother Abdullah said a comment on verse 36 as the verse suggests some Christians always frighten other people with their idols.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying if you don't believe Jesus is Savior or God, you are done. So yeah, kind of like Suleman had mentioned that too, and they do.
Mm-hmm.
They make it. You know, they like you had said, brother. They condemn you to hell if you don't believe in this prophet or saint. And they don't even look at Jesus as a prophet. They look at him as like The you know, yeah, and same with the Mohammedans, right? Yeah, I almost think it's worse with Mohammedans. I could be wrong, but like, 'cause they'll threaten to kill you and stuff. Yeah, Mohammed done or done. Yeah, Mohammed done or done. That's true.
Subhanallah, brother, like you were explaining, they believe that only they are going to heaven. There are
Mm-hmm.
certain groups as well that believe the same thing that the Christians believe. They believe that, or even if they don't believe, really they say it, that
Mm-hmm.
only they are going to heaven.
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to fall into idol worship, right? I mean, uh, it's a scary thing to think about. I mean, it's a warning for a reminder for all the believers. The reason why we see on every page, God is reminding us to worship God alone, don't have any idols. I mean, we see it on almost every page in the Quran, and we understand, how important it is, based on that, God could just tell us once, but in one verse, even then, just even if it once didn't mean that it was any less important, but God uh, wants us to focus on the importance of worshiping God alone and not committing idol worship, and rightfully so, because we understand that, I mean, it will nullify everything, right? Imagine like you could have done years and years and years of good work, right? And now something happened and you fell into idol worship, right? You decided to uphold something other than the Quran, even, idol worship, right? You decided to uphold another source besides Quran, or you decided that someone other than God can help you, benefit you in some way. Something else became your idol, or someone else. These are serious things, but so important to remember that, because nullifying all our works shows how evil that something is, right? I mean, we know that if we commit sins, that our weights would be lighter. It will hurt your soul will shrink, right? But it will get to the point where you will completely lose it. It just empties out your whole uh, all your works, right? Everything you have gained your entire life in this world, all your years of hard work would be gone just like that. It will have no weight.
Yeah, man. These people, falling into idol worship is like being amongst the worst losers, like the Quran says. It says
Hmm.
you noted, or I don't know if it says have you noted, but it says the worst losers, and then it says
Mhm.
they think that they're doing right, and they think they're
Mhm.
on the path and stuff, but they end up falling into idolatry and everything. They're completely
Mhm.
um, and it's like there's so many idols around us too, like you had mentioned. I mean, like the messenger clarifies as well. The ego,
Mhm.
there's, if you think your job or your boss or something can get you a raise, or even if you think, if you're flying or something, or if you think the pilot, if there's a delay, right? And even if you start to
Mhm.
get upset, or some people are getting upset around you, it's important because Satan will try to use that to be like, oh, they're getting upset, like, let me get
Mhm.
mad at the pilot and stuff. And,
Mhm.
because I mean, we'll be tested by so many situations, and like on a daily, or, if someone, like I think mentioned last study about brother Abdullah brought it up about not being suspicious. If you don't tip somebody, um, you know, and they make a face at you through the through the drive-through. I mean, that's these are commandments from God, right? And so we have to work really hard, um, at looking, asking God to help us and to show us like, okay, maybe I was just messed up there, or and immediately repent, because
Mhm.
I re-listened to, I think, one of the audio 72 about repentance, and like the messenger said, it's in our hands or not to commit a sin, so he said, believers constantly, submitters constantly repent, and they pledge that they'll never, commit another sin again, and they mean it. And of course, the human can fall into sin, like he says, but going forward, we have to have that intention behind it, and God willing,
Mhm.
we'll be helped. Because the majority of the people, like
Mhm.
people we could work with and stuff, they don't think about, like, they don't have the awareness about the hereafter. So,
Mhm.
we also have to be mindful of when we deal with these people out of necessity and stuff, to not get dragged in, because kind of like I think the verse in the Quran also states about not being pulled in by those who do not remember God, or I forget exactly, but there's a few verses I think about that. Like don't be distracted. Don't let these people distract you or try to pull you away.
Mhm.
And we can use these opportunities too. Like I'm sure we all have to spread the message of the mathematical code. You know, um, which is also
Mhm.
is good for our soul too, because it reminds us as well.
Subhanallah, brother Suleman had some good points, where he was explaining how, we must make sure that we don't think that anything's because of our intelligence or because we are so great, how he was explaining how we must implore God for everything we get and know that anything good we get is from God. And, those were very important um, comments, subhanAllah.
Yeah, so I have to step away for a little bit. Did I miss anything?
No, you didn't miss anything.
Okay. All
Mashallah.
right. So, mashallah. So are there any off-topic questions from anyone, or any other comments or questions from anybody regarding the verses we read? Anything that was not clear or confusion, maybe?
Yeah, actually, the one with the idols, how they frighten you with the idols, I actually never understood that, or I kind of had some
Mm-hmm.
ideas about what it maybe
Mm-hmm.
meant. Like I thought about like the scary idols, like that Abraham destroyed, these big rocks or something. But then that didn't really make sense
Mm-hmm.
too much. But that makes perfect
Mm-hmm.
sense, about how thinking about it now, how they actually
Mm-hmm.
frighten you, like
Mm-hmm.
legitimately frighten you by trying to tell you, like, oh, you're gonna burn in hell forever if you don't
Mm-hmm.
believe in this idol or saint.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I never really got that verse until today. Mashallah.
Mm-hmm. Mashallah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean they that is a way for these people to frighten you by telling you, well, I mean, like the that one letter that we received from somewhere in the neighborhood where they were talking about like how like we have all these sins that we need them, like we need these idols because
Yeah, I
we
remember.
right? So it's the same thing, like, it's scaring us with those idols that, you need them. Like same with insurance, it's based on fear, like this will happen, this will happen. And they use this fear tactic, to promote their idols. And so the same way for people to think that, God alone is not enough for you. You need Jesus in your life, or you need Muhammad to be your intercessor, uh, you know so I think that is a very good example of people trying to frighten you by telling you that, if you don't, take these idols, that, something bad will happen to you. And also, like, when you talk about God alone. I mean, I've had this experience with so many people, like the Mohammedans. Like they make you believe with their idols that you're on the wrong path, right? I mean, that's also a way of frightening you and scaring you when they say, no, but God said Muhammad is like this and Muhammad is the best or whatever, and you're saying this about him, like definitely, you're gonna be doomed, and this is gonna happen and that's gonna happen to you. I mean, they do this a lot, right? And so with all the things that they preach regarding their idols, I mean, they're really that's how they get people, right? They get people by telling them that they're going to be abandoned somehow on the day of judgment if they don't believe in these idols. I mean, that's the same way the people, promote their idols in all these religions. So you're getting these benefits that certain benefits that you want, you have to go through these idols. Otherwise, you won't get them.
Yeah, exactly. Or they'll play mind games on you, or
Hmm.
quote stuff that Jesus said, or so we don't even know if he said this actually too, because I
Hmm.
think the book that it came from, they had multiple authors, so they don't. And
Hmm.
this is like universally agreed upon. But
Hmm.
there's one thing he said, like how most people will be deceived, like towards the end times or something. Like most people will
Hmm.
be tricked by like great signs and stuff, and then they'll tell you this stuff to try to, like, oh, Jesus is the only way, but then that God is sufficient, kind of, just like the verse in the beginning says, is God not sufficient? And you can also tell
Hmm.
these people, or if like you really debate with them or think about it for yourself, for your own being and stuff, that God would never allow something like that. Like that's thinking so wrongly about God on so many levels to think that He would permit somebody else to rule with Him. It's having
Hmm.
really bad thoughts about your Creator to think He would just allow that. So just on that basis, that should give us assurance and stuff, and
Hmm.
and then of course we have the greatest miracle of all of 19. You know,
Hmm.
and the one and the nine is the first and the last. Kind of like detailed. I read, I think, shared with the group a few weeks ago. I might have seen it before, but it really, I guess, hit home too. Again, after me going through the miracle, more detailed. I'm still going through it, but it's. I even sent this to somebody too. I sent that part, to one of my
Hmm.
Christian friends, and then it actually
Hmm.
he came back a few days later. He didn't respond at first, but he said he's been thinking
Hmm.
about it, like because
Hmm.
before I talked to this person a lot, about it, and he didn't believe in any of it. But like when I sent him the one and the nine, and like the first and last Alpha and Omega, like they say in the Bible, he was like, wow, that
Hmm.
he's still thinking
Hmm.
about it, So
Hmm.
that was like amazing. SubhanAllah.
Inshallah. Yes, well, and also the verse I read about promoting the truth, right? It's important for us to also promote the truth, not just follow it ourselves, but to also promote it to others, in verse 33, 39, 33.
MashaAllah, like I think you had shared a verse with me, brother, a couple weeks ago. You're telling me in person about you shall preach to those who are closest to you. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so this includes like people,
Mm-hmm.
like I see, from let's
Mm-hmm.
say for work more often,
Mm-hmm.
or just people, that you have closer interactions with.
Mm-hmm.
because it helps us too. It's also for our benefit. Like it's for their benefit too. But it's also um, reaffirming this stuff, and it's giving us a chance to read more verses from the Quran or study
Mm-hmm.
the appendix or introduction or other stuff, or just have an engaging conversation with these people. And of course there's still going to be people that are gonna ridicule and mock and stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
especially on social media. but they'll see that on the day of judgment.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, people, instead of thanking God for sending these messengers and, taking heed from it, take the position of actually mocking them and calling them names, just because of their idols, right? The other day, I got some comments from this one person, you know, and I looked at their profile afterwards, and it had the pictures of Muhammad's tomb, as their profile picture, you know, and it said so many horrible things about, the Messenger of the Covenant, and just mocking and everything.
Yeah, it's like imagine how bad these people are. It's like if you
Mhm,
come to anybody with a treasure chest full of rubies and diamonds, they're. I mean, imagine somebody just slapping that out your hand.
mhm,
Like how
mhm,
terrible can that person be? That's essentially
yeah,
what they're doing.
mhm.
You saw a comment. Where was this, brother? A comment online. This
This was on
person.
YouTube, yeah. This was on
Oh,
YouTube. Yeah.
uh
He said the mini said something like mini Dajjal or something. You know,
huh.
Dajjal is their
Oh, is
when
it this
God talks
job?
about the computer, you know, they think he talks about this antichrist type figure that they have invented in Islam.
Yeah, yeah. The
And so,
Antichrist. That's already.
yeah.
It's
Mm-hmm.
that was
Yeah.
Apostle Paul or
Mm-hmm.
Saul.
Mm-hmm.
The Antichrist is, and I mean, even
Mm-hmm.
like in Christianity, it's
Yeah.
that's the part where most Christians are going to be deceived, and you can see
Mm-hmm.
how they are.
Yeah.
They're all following Paul.
Yeah, they still yeah,
Like
and
who was
yeah.
Antichrist? He spoke Antichrist everything. He did anti-Jesus
Mm-hmm.
teachings and all of that, and he
Mm-hmm.
was the one who came right after Jesus, and he has literally deceived single-handedly millions, or I don't even know if it's how many
Mm-hmm.
Christians are, maybe a billion. But
Mm-hmm.
he's the reason, he's the culprit
Mm-hmm.
essentially. I mean, Satan is, but like if you want to
Mm-hmm.
call it antichrist, so there's no antichrist that is coming. I mean, if you want to say there
Mm-hmm.
was one, you can. The closest one that would fit the
Mm-hmm.
molding is
Yeah.
Paul, who was actually Saul. He changed. He was a
Mm-hmm.
Pharisaic he's a Pharisee. His name was Saul, so
Mm-hmm.
he changed it to Paul.
Mm-hmm.
He was the biggest
Yeah.
murderer too. I mean, he murdered Christians in cold blood, tortured them,
Mm-hmm.
hung them upside
Mm-hmm.
down, shot arrows in them. I mean, this is someone the most evil person supposedly has you know, and
Mm-hmm.
like people just ignore all that. Like he persecuted the believing, set them on fire. Like the worst of the worst of the worst he did to them. Like the believing
Mm-hmm.
Christians. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's a similar idea, they have in Islam too about someone who will come but then they have like these really funny descriptions in the Bayt Hadith about his appearance. But I mean, it's funny that they would even attribute to him, and they still don't want to give him full credit for that either. He called him Mini Dajjal, like. Uh,
Oh, that's the mini one, miniature version.
yeah,
I hadn't heard of that. That's pretty funny.
yeah.
it's almost like they're setting them up like as a idol themselves, and they don't even realize it.
Mm-hmm.
Like in a
Yeah,
weird
and
way,
I mean, at
they're
the
almost
end of the day,
glorifying this
hmm
figure, like
yeah,
you know.
yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, it's not about God, it's about their idol. So it's not about God and whatever God is saying. It's about the human aspect of it, like they're after not caring about the message, but they're targeting the messenger. You know, it's like they're not saying, okay, why is God alone to be worshipped? Why can't we not worship Muhammad, or why can't we believe in intercession? The only thing they go straight away, oh, Rashad is this, Rashad is that. And because they uh, they just focus on idol worship. That's how they're wired.
Right. So they just focus on the human
Focus on
aspect and the
both
idol.
aspects. Mhm. Sorry about that. Yeah. So, I guess if there are there any other comments or questions from anyone? So, if not, God willing, we can conclude our study. So, thank you all for joining us. And God willing, our next English Quran study would be on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
God bless you.
God
Assalamu
bless you
alaikum.
all.